Hello and welcome to IAMC Radio and Podcast. We're exploring the top news headlines today, April 8th. We've got a lot to cover, from economic changes within Nigeria to some pretty big international stories.
Yeah, it's a full plate.
So where do we even begin?
Well, let's start in Abia State. The government there is rolling out a new economic policy, really pushing their Made in Abia products.
Made in Abia, what's that all about?
It's all tied into their existing local content law. Basically, they're trying to boost local production and consumption, especially with all the economic pressure, inflation and all that.
So how does that play out, practically?
Well, the government itself is going to prioritize buying goods and services produced right there in Abia State. It's about keeping the money circulating locally, supporting local businesses, creating jobs within Abia.
Makes sense.
Governor Adi just met with Ethnocentric Limited. They make aquite fabric. It's a good example of the kind of local industries they're looking to promote.
Oh, I've heard of that fabric. It's beautiful.
Right. And they're also making progress on the teacher recruitment front. Final stage is done for about 7,000 applicants, certificate verification, interviews, the works.
That's a lot of teachers.
It is. And they've got another round of recruitment coming up for those who missed the first phase. Plus, they're trying to ensure inclusivity. Over 180 people with disabilities also completed the final stage.
That's good to hear.
And they're serious about it, too. They had a 30-member panel for the interviews, professors, PhD holders, senior education folks, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
And they're not messing around with illegal school fees either.
Yeah, how does that even work? Free education, but then there are all these extra costs.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
But the government is saying no more. Principals caught collecting illegal fees, they're facing penalties, maybe even losing their jobs. And to help schools out, they're planning to provide in-press funds directly.
That's got to help with transparency, at least.
Exactly.
Switching gears a bit, there's some troubling news out of Abia as well. A security breach, sadly, with fatalities.
Yeah. 2 Chinese nationals and a police officer were killed by bandits near Uturu. Investigations underway. It's a stark reminder of the security challenges in parts of Nigeria.
It is. And speaking of security, Amnesty International has issued a pretty strong statement about the situation in northern Nigeria.
They're really concerned about the rise in attacks under the current administration.
What are they saying specifically?
Just in the past week, at least 71 people were killed by terrorists in Plateau, Kebbi, and Katsina states. Plus, over 50 people abducted in Katsina. It's really bad.
Oh, wow.
Amnesty International is saying it could turn into a humanitarian disaster, with people displaced, livelihoods destroyed.
A humanitarian disaster? That's serious.
They're also criticizing the government's response. Troop deployments haven't stopped the killings, and no one's being brought to justice. People in Benue and Plateau, they're living in fear, feeling helpless.
It's heartbreaking. Shifting focus now, there's a troubling story coming out of the Nigerian Correctional Service. Charles Okah, the Independence Day bomber, is reportedly in solitary confinement in Maiduguri.
Yeah, and the reason behind it is pretty disturbing.
What's going on?
It seems he's being punished for exposing corruption within the NCOS.
Corruption? Like what?
He's alleging senior officers are involved in illegally releasing convicted inmates, and it seems they're trying to silence him.
That's awful.
Yeah.
What are the conditions of his confinement?
Reports say he's been denied medication, family visits, even enough food. And this isn't the first time. Back in 2019, he was put in solitary for exposing sexual abuse of children in the same prison.
Wow. So this new corruption case, what exactly did he uncover?
He sent a letter to the Minister of Interior claiming senior NCOS officers are working with the Borno State Judiciary to forge conviction warrants. They're basically altering documents to release inmates early, for a price, of course.
So they're making money off of this?
It seems so. He even claims they're tampering with evidence to cover their tracks, and current and former officials are allegedly obstructing justice too.
It's a whole system of corruption.
Exactly.
But how did he even find out about this?
Apparently, he was helping a young inmate pay a fine, and an officer offered to release him illegally for half the amount. Okah tried to report it, but they just brushed him off, tried to make it seem like an isolated incident.
Oh, that's terrible.
And despite the threats and solitary confinement, he's still speaking out against the corruption. This is a big deal. It goes way beyond just a few bad apples. It involves the records office, intelligence office, the gate office, even senior prison officials.
This is huge. It really undermines the whole idea of justice.
Absolutely.
Moving on to a different kind of financial issue, NCOS is reporting some pretty shocking numbers about illicit financial flows out of Africa.
Yeah, we're talking $88.6 billion lost annually. That's a massive amount of money leaving the continent illegally.
That's hard to even grasp. Where's it all going?
It's money from illegal sources, illegal transfers, illegal uses, all moving across borders. Weak laws, corruption, poor anti-money laundering measures, it all adds up.
And what's the impact of this?
Well, it's a huge drain on resources, obviously. We're talking 3.7% of Africa's GDP gone.
Wow.
And the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace, and Security, he's directly linking this to the fragility of democracy in the region. Corruption feeds these illicit flows. It undermines good governance, and it hinders development.
So what is ECOWAS doing to address this?
They're working on strengthening democratic governance, trying to close those loopholes that allow corruption to thrive.
That makes sense.
They're also concerned about cryptocurrencies, which, present new challenges for financial crime. And to help fight all this, they're providing training to anti-corruption institutions, teaching them better investigative techniques and asset recovery strategies.
So a multifaceted approach.
Exactly. And they're emphasizing that tackling corruption and these illicit flows is crucial for achieving their long-term vision for West Africa.
It's a global problem, really, isn't it?
It is.
Speaking of global issues, the European Union is urging China to respond responsibly to the tariffs imposed by the United States.
Right, President Trump slapped some tariffs on Chinese goods, and the EU is calling for a negotiated solution to avoid further escalation.
And how has China responded?
Well, they're not happy. They're calling it blackmail and refusing to back down. It's a tense situation.
It sounds like it. What's the EU's position in all this?
They're walking a tightrope. They're urging a peaceful resolution, stressing the importance of a free and fair global trading system. But they're also concerned about Chinese goods flooding European markets if those exports are diverted because of the U.S. tariffs.
So they're worried about the potential economic impact on Europe.
Exactly. They're trying to protect their own interests while also advocating for a stable global trade environment.
It's a tough spot to be in.
It is.
Back in Nigeria, Senator Ali Ndoum has come out criticizing President Tinubu's appointments.
Yes, he's saying they violate the federal character principle.
Can you remind me what that is exactly?
It's in the 1999 Constitution. It mandates that government appointments should reflect the diversity of Nigeria. All the different ethnicities and regions. Senator Ndoum is saying the current appointments don't do that.
He seems pretty passionate about this.
He is. He's saying this isn't a personal attack on the president. It's about upholding the Constitution. He knows he's going to get a flack for speaking out, but he says it's his duty as a lawmaker.
It's an important issue. Representation matters.
Absolutely.
So how is Nigeria responding to those U.S. tariffs we talked about earlier?
Well, they're not jumping to retaliation, which is interesting.
What are they doing instead?
The trade minister says they're talking with the U.S. and the World Trade Organization, trying to find a solution that works for everyone.
Okay, so diplomacy first. What are the main exports that are being affected?
Well, over 90% of Nigeria's exports to the U.S. are crude oil. Then there's fertilizers, lead. Those are much smaller.
So the oil industry will feel the brunt of this.
Yeah, but it also hurts smaller businesses, especially those agro-allied companies that were benefiting from AGOA. That's the African Growth and Opportunity Act. It gives some African countries duty-free access to the U.S. market.
So those businesses are going to be hit hard.
Unfortunately, yes. But the government is focusing on building a more resilient economy, diversifying their exports. They still see the U.S. as a valuable partner, but they're also looking at expanding into other markets and strengthening trade within Africa through the ABFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area.
That seems like a smart, long-term strategy.
Definitely.
Switching gears completely, let's head over to South Korea. They've got a presidential election coming up soon.
Yep, June 3rd. And this all comes after the impeachment and removal of former President Yoon Suk-yeol.
Remind me what happened there.
It was pretty dramatic. He declared martial law, and things went downhill from there. Led to impeachment proceedings, and ultimately he was removed from office.
Martial law, wow. So when will the new president take over?
Right away. The election day is a public holiday, and the winner is inaugurated the very next day. No time for a drawn-out transition here.
Things are moving fast. Any frontrunners yet?
Opposition leader Lee Jae-myung is in the lead, and his party already controls the National Assembly.
So he's in good position.
Experts are saying he's very likely to win.
Anyone else in the running?
The labor minister, Kim Moon-soo, he's trailing behind in the polls. But, this is South Korea's second impeachment in recent history. So the political landscape is pretty volatile.
It sounds like it. And it's not just the political situation, right? They've got economic challenges, too.
Yeah, those U.S. tariffs are hitting them as well. A 26% tariff on their exports. And on top of that, former President Yoon is facing a separate criminal trial for insurrection.
So a lot of uncertainty for South Korea right now.
Definitely.
Finally, let's loop back to Nigeria. Omoyole Sowore is predicting an increase in protests.
Yeah, he's saying Nigerians are fed up with the current administration. Things are getting worse, socially, politically, economically.
What's he pointing to specifically?
Hunger, he says it's widespread. He's also talking about rampant corruption, especially in River State, lack of representation in Kogi State, and, of course, unemployment is a huge issue.
So people are feeling the pressure.
Absolutely. And Sowore sees the current protests as just the beginning. He's calling for a bigger movement to demand change.
He's been a vocal critic of the government for a while now.
He has. He's especially critical of the Cybercrime Act. He calls it a tool for silencing dissent.
And hasn't he been personally targeted by that law?
Yes, he was charged under the Cybercrime Act, and they seized his passport at one point.
Wow.
He's also saying that things are so bad right now, people are literally struggling to survive.
It's a dire situation.
It is. And he even mentioned a rumor about a plan to shift Nigeria to a parliamentary system, which he thinks could be a way for the current president to hold on to power for longer.
That's a pretty serious allegation.
It is. But whether it's true or not, it just shows the level of distrust and anxiety people have right now.
Definitely a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of news today.
Thank you for listening to today's top news headlines on IAMC Radio and Podcast.